quiet suburban street, humming with the low whir of streetlights. Two patrol cars slide up behind a black SUV, lights flaring red and blue. Inside that SUV sits a man, calm, composed, silent. But the officers outside don't see calm. They see threat. Within minutes, what starts as a routine stop becomes a humiliation, an arrest built on arrogance, not law. Because to these officers, one thing mattered more than the badge, more than the truth, the color of his skin. They didn't ask who he was. They didn't check what unit the SUV belonged to, and they didn't know that the man they were detaining was the leader of the city's elite SWAT team, until his team showed up. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you're watching from. The story begins under a soft wash of amber streetlight. It's 10:43 p.m. The city hums faintly, a mix of crickets, distant sirens, and the occasional car echoing through empty streets. In that calm sits Marcus Hale, 38, tall, lean, with eyes that have seen war and peace in equal measure. He's in a gray hoodie, sleeves rolled up, a faint scar tracing his jawline, the kind that carries history. He's just left a late training session at the precinct gym, the kind of quiet night where even his breathing syncs with the rhythm of the city. He hums to an old Sam Cooke song playing low from his phone. A change is gonna come. Marcus drives an unmarked SUV, tinted, black, standard issue for tactical ops. He's not in uniform. He never needs to be. A faint drizzle begins to fall. Soft, misty, painting reflections of red traffic lights across the windshield. He's thinking about his daughter's birthday tomorrow. He's thinking about the speech he's supposed to give to new recruits about integrity, about serving the people, not policing them. Then, the headlights behind him flare bright. Too bright, a siren chirps once. Then again, Marcus sighs, pulls to the curb. He sets the car in park, lowers the window halfway, and rests his hands calmly on the steering wheel. Two officers approach. One younger, Officer Kelton, buzz-cut, too much confidence in his stride. The other, older, Sergeant Dorsey, mid-40s, chewing gum, eyes cold and assessing. They flank the car, flashlights cutting through the drizzle like interrogation beams. Kelton knocks on the window. Marcus lowers it the rest of the way. "Evenin', officer." Kelton smirks. "License and registration." Marcus hands over his ID and department-issued registration. "Of course." Dorsey leans in, eyes scanning the inside. "You military or something?" Marcus's tone stays calm. "Something like that." Dorsey circles the car, flashlight dragging across the tinted windows. "Vehicle like this don't belong in this neighborhood." "You staying around here?" Marcus's jaw tightens slightly. "I live 3 blocks down." The silence stretches. Then, from Dorsey, "Step out of the vehicle." Marcus blinks once. "May I ask why?" Kelton grins, that kind of grin that says he enjoys this part. "Because I said so." The drizzle thickens. The night holds its breath, and Marcus, still calm, still collected, opens the door. Steps out. His boots hit the wet pavement. Hands still visible. Voice still even. But something shifts in the air. A tension, the kind that precedes a storm. Rain patters on the asphalt. The light flickers off the cruiser's hood. Marcus stands, silent, steady. Kelton circles him like a predator testing boundaries. "Mind telling me what you're doing out this late?" "Driving home," Marcus replies simply. "From where?" "Work. Doing what?" There's a pause. Marcus's answer is deliberate. "Law enforcement," Kelton laughs. "Yeah? You security or something?" "No," Marcus says quietly. "Something higher up." Dorsey exchanges a look with Kelton. "You smell that?" Kelton smirks. "Yeah, smells like bull." Before he finishes, Marcus pulls out a small badge wallet from his pocket, opening it slightly. "I'm Captain Marcus Hale, Metro SWAT." The laughter dies instantly. But Dorsey doesn't back down. "SWAT, huh? Then why the hoodie? Why the attitude?" "No attitude, Sergeant. Just answering your questions." Dorsey steps closer. Too close. "Well, Captain, we got a call about a suspicious vehicle matching yours." So how about we make sure you're not the one we're looking for? He gestures to Kelton. Search it, Marcus's tone sharpens. You don't have probable cause. Kelton grins wider. Refusing a lawful order now? It's not lawful, Marcus says, his voice low, controlled. You know that. Dorsey's jaw tightens. Put your hands behind your back. For a long moment, the rain seems to freeze midair. Marcus exhales. He knows where this is going. Has seen this dance before, too many times. He turns around slowly, places his hands behind him. Cold steel cuffs click around his wrists. Kelton presses his shoulder roughly against the car. You got quite the mouth for someone under arrest. Marcus says nothing. The officers exchange smug looks. To them, it's another night, another lesson. But across the radio on Marcus's belt, a small vibration hums. A silent alert, activated the moment his cuffs closed. Inside the Metro Tactical Command Center, a screen lights up red. Alert. Captain Hale. Emergency code 6. Two men look up. One of them, Lieutenant Ruiz, frowns. That's Hale's ID. He's not on a mission tonight. He grabs his radio. Dispatch, we have an alert on Captain Hale. Ping GPS. The reply comes back cold. Signal located, 77th and Brookshire. Ruiz's eyes darken. He hits the squad intercom. Team 1, gear up, now. Back on the street, Kelton's voice cuts through the rain. You people think you're untouchable, huh? Badge don't mean much when you're not in uniform. Marcus's tone stays even. You're making a mistake, Dorsey scoffs. We'll see about that. They push him against the hood. Search him. Find nothing. Kelton opens the SUV door, starts rummaging. Nice ride. Mind if I... He freezes. Inside the glove box, tactical credentials, encrypted comms, a patch bearing the words Metro, Special Weapons and Tactics. Command. Kelton's smirk fades. Sarge? Dorsey walks over, eyes narrowing at the badge, then at Marcus. He swallows hard. Where'd you get this? Marcus meets his gaze. I earned it. The radio on Dorsey's shoulder crackles. Faint static, then a new voice. Unit 12. Stand down immediately. You are detaining a Metro Command officer. SWAT en route. The officers freeze. What did she say? Kelton mutters. Before Dorsey can reply, distant rumble. Engines. Multiple. 3 armored vehicles roll silently down the wet street. Matte black. Headlights off until the last second. When they flick on, the light floods everything. Blinding, bright, deliberate, red laser dots dance across the pavement. Pinning the 2 patrol officers in sharp relief, Kelton's voice cracks. What the hell? Through the rain, boots hit the ground. Tactical gear glints under the lamps. A dozen SWAT officers fan out, rifles lowered but ready. Their commander, Lieutenant Ruiz, steps forward, his vest emblazoned with SWAT command. His voice booms, "Release the captain. Now." Kelton's mouth opens but no sound comes out. Dorsey stammers, "See, Captain?" Ruiz's tone is colder now. Captain Marcus Hale, team leader, Metro Division. The man you just cuffed on suspicion of. Existing while driving? No one speaks. Ruiz turns to Marcus, still calm, still cuffed. Sir, you all right? Marcus nods. I'm fine. Ruiz gestures. 2 SWAT officers step forward, remove the cuffs. Marcus rubs his wrists slowly. No anger in his movements, just quiet disappointment. Dorsey starts to mutter, We didn't know." Marcus cuts him off gently. You didn't care to know. The silence is brutal. The neighborhood windows glow now. Residents peeking out, phones recording, whispers rising. Kelton's voice trembles. You called them? Marcus shakes his head. Didn't have to. My badge did. Ruiz steps closer to the officers. You realize what you just did? You detained a commanding officer on his own street. Dorsey stares at the ground. It was a mistake. Marcus's eyes narrow. No, it was a choice. Kelton looks like he wants to vanish into the rain. Marcus turns to Ruiz. Get the body cams. Ruiz nods. Already rolling, Marcus exhales, his voice soft but cutting. Then we let the footage speak. The next day, the footage floods the department servers. Within hours, it's leaked. The video shows everything. The smug grins, the unnecessary commands, the cuffs clicking on a man who never raised his voice. Headlines explode. Local officers detain SWAT captain in racial profiling incident. Body cam footage exposes bias in city's own force. The department scrambles. The chief releases a statement. Disciplinary review pending. But behind the scenes, it's Marcus who demands something else. Not suspension. Not revenge. Accountability. 2 weeks later, in the department's briefing room, Kelton and Dorsey sit stiffly across from Marcus, Ruiz, and Internal Affairs. The room is silent except for the hum of the projector. Marcus presses a button. The footage plays again, frame by frame. When it ends, Marcus leans forward. "Tell me, Sergeant, what part of that was procedure?" Dorsey swallows. "None, sir," Marcus nods. "Correct." He turns to Kelton. "And you? What made you assume I didn't belong here?" Kelton's voice barely holds. "Sir, Marcus interrupts quietly. "Don't call me sir now. You didn't see one that night." The silence stings. Then Marcus stands, hands behind his back, composed as always. "I don't need you fired," he says softly. "I need you educated." He walks to the board. Writes 2 words. Bias training. Every patrol officer. Every precinct. Effective immediately. The chief nods reluctantly. Consider it done. Marcus turns to leave. Before exiting, he looks back once more. "Next time you see someone who looks like me behind the wheel, remember this night, because the badge doesn't make you powerful. The way you use it does." He walks out, the echo of his boots the only sound left. "Let me ask you something. Have you ever watched someone abuse power, only to realize too late that they picked the wrong person to mess with? Because tonight's story is exactly that. A lesson about arrogance, patience, and what real power looks like when it doesn't need to shout. Before we begin, comment below and tell me where in the world you're watching from, because what happens next could happen anywhere. And it always begins the same way, with flashing lights, a dark road, and a man who stayed calm when the world turned cruel." The sirens sliced through the night as 2 police cruisers boxed in a black pickup truck on an empty highway outside Savannah, Georgia. Behind the wheel sat Dexter Williams, a tall, composed black man in his 40s, wearing a simple black jacket and gloves. He didn't move fast, didn't argue, didn't speak. He just placed both hands on the wheel, fingers spread, eyes steady. "Step out of the vehicle," the officer barked. "Hands where I can see them." Dexter complied, the kind of calm that comes not from fear, but from training. He'd seen worse. He'd survived worse. But something about the officer's tone reminded him that no amount of medals or service stripes could change how some men see the world. 2 officers approached. One young, anxious but human. The other, older, smug, a man who carried his badge like a license to humiliate. "License and registration," the older one said, eyes scanning the inside of the truck like he was hunting for a reason. Dexter handed them over. The officer flipped through them, then squinted. "Where you headed this late, son?" That word. Son. Dexter had been called many things. Sergeant, captain, commander, but never that. He looked straight ahead. "Just heading home," the officer smirked. "Home? In a truck like this? You from around here?" Dexter didn't answer. He'd learned that sometimes silence is the only answer small minds understand. The older cop motioned to his partner. "Run the plates. Let's see who this guy thinks he is." Minutes passed. The hum of the police radio filled the night air. Then the younger officer came back, face pale. Sarge. "The system says this truck's registered to a Captain Dexter Williams, Joint Tactical Response Division." The older cop laughed. "Yeah, and I'm the mayor. Step out of the car, Captain." Dexter looked at him. Calm, patient, unblinking. "You're making a mistake," but the sergeant wasn't listening. He pushed Dexter against the truck, the metal cold against his cheek, the cuffs even colder. The younger officer shifted awkwardly, torn between duty and conscience. And then, the radio cracked again. Unit 12, confirm. Are you detaining Captain Dexter Williams of the State Tactical Response Division? Silence. The kind that freezes time. The sergeant's grip loosened slightly. The younger cop stepped back. Dexter didn't move, didn't gloat, didn't need to. He just said quietly, "You should probably answer that." Because 3 miles away, an unmarked armored van had just stopped on the side of the highway. 12 elite SWAT officers stepped out in full tactical gear. They'd received an emergency beacon from their commanding officer's phone, the one that only activates under duress. Dexter had never pressed it before. Until tonight, and in less than 5 minutes, they would surround that entire scene. Here's what that moment teaches us. Power isn't loud. It doesn't threaten. It waits, patiently, until arrogance reveals its own weakness. Those officers thought they were dealing with another man they could intimidate, but they had just put handcuffs on the man who trained half the state's tactical units, and before the night was over, they would learn that respect isn't given by force, it's earned through discipline. To understand that night, you have to understand the man. Dexter Williams wasn't born calm. He built it, brick by brick, scar by scar. He grew up in the south end of Macon, Georgia, a place where boys learned early that silence could save your life. His mother was a nurse who worked double shifts and came home with swollen feet but unshaken faith. His father was a truck mechanic who taught him that dignity isn't something people give you. It's something you carry even when they try to take it away. Dexter learned discipline before he learned comfort. He enlisted at 19 not because he wanted to fight, but because he wanted structure, a code that made sense in a world that didn't. And the Army gave him that. In war, he saw 2 kinds of men, those who shouted to be heard, and those who spoke once and never had to repeat themselves. Dexter became the second kind. His leadership wasn't loud. It was precise. He commanded with eyes that said, "Do what's right, even when no one's watching." He earned respect from people who didn't look like him, talk like him, or even believe he belonged there, because results speak louder than prejudice ever could. When he left the military, the state recruited him into a special operations division, the Tactical Response Unit. Their job wasn't to make headlines. It was to end crises before they started. But leadership doesn't erase racism. In boardrooms and briefings, he could feel it. The subtle shift when he entered the room. The way junior officers looked to anyone else but him for direction. The way people used words like impressive when what they meant was unexpected. And still, he stayed focused. He believed that power isn't about punishing ignorance. It's about outlasting it. But the town of Ashton, Georgia, where the incident took place, hadn't evolved much since the 1960s. It was a place where Confederate flags still hung in garage windows, and local law enforcement still carried stories about the old days with a hint of pride. To them, a black man in a black truck on a quiet road wasn't a citizen. He was a challenge, a problem to control before understanding. That's the root of it. Not just racism, but assumed hierarchy. The belief that authority belongs to certain people, and compliance belongs to others. The human brain makes 1,000 unconscious judgments in less than a second, and when bias is baked into those judgments, it becomes instinct. That's what those officers were running on that night. Instinct, not truth. Conditioning, not reality. And here's the painful irony. Dexter trained officers like them. He lectured at police academies on restraint, escalation control, and emotional regulation under stress. He had stood in front of classrooms filled with young cadets, teaching them that force is never the first solution, that leadership begins with emotional control. But on that dark road, none of that mattered, because in the eyes of 2 small-town cops, none of those titles followed him into the night. All they saw was a black man behind the wheel of a truck they couldn't afford, driving through a town that still believed it owned him. Here's what that reveals. Systems don't collapse because of hate alone. They collapse because good people stay silent when hate becomes tradition. And that night, tradition pulled those officers into a mistake that would echo far beyond that road. Because while they thought they were humiliating one man, they were actually exposing an entire culture, a system built on the illusion that respect must be demanded, not earned, and that illusion was about to crack wide open. Because in that moment, cuffed and calm, Dexter Williams wasn't thinking about revenge. He was thinking about the lesson he was about to teach. Not with words, not with anger, but with strategy. He didn't need to fight the system with rage. He was about to outthink it, and the first move of that lesson was already in motion. Every man reaches a point where pride whispers louder than reason. For Dexter Williams, that moment came with the sound of metal tightening around his wrists. The cuffs clicked. Cold steel against warm skin, a sound that had echoed through generations. It wasn't just restraint, it was history. And as the sergeant stepped back, satisfied with his small display of control, Dexter felt a familiar heat rising inside him, the kind that starts in the chest and burns its way to the jaw. Anger, not the kind that lashes out, but the kind that remembers. He'd been here before. Not this road, not this town, but this feeling. The quiet humiliation of being doubted for existing. The temptation to fight, to prove, to shout, "Do you know who I am?" But that voice inside him, the one carved by years of combat and command, whispered something else. Not yet. He looked at the younger officer, eyes flickering between guilt and confusion. And for a moment, Dexter saw himself at 19, trying to do the right thing in a world that rewards compliance over courage. That realization stopped the fire from spreading. He exhaled slowly, controlled, precise, the kind of breath soldiers take before making the hardest decision of their life. Because here's the truth. Self-control isn't weakness. It's mastery. It's the art of knowing that not every battle deserves your energy, and not every insult deserves your answer. The sergeant circled back. "You think you're better than me, huh?" Dexter didn't respond. The man stepped closer, leaning into the silence. "You people never learn. Always got an excuse." Dexter turned his head just enough to meet his eyes, and in that stillness, something unspoken passed between them. Not fear, not defiance, just a warning written in calm. The older officer blinked. For a split second, he felt it. That quiet, commanding energy that made men straighten their backs without knowing why. Then, just as quickly, he pushed the feeling away. He needed to be in control. He needed this to mean something, but Dexter had already chosen. He wouldn't give him the satisfaction of reaction, because reacting would mean stepping down to his level. Responding with discipline meant standing above it.